In a previous video, I made the following statements regarding Robert Brooks and New York State Department of Corrections officers.
The reason why Letitia James didn't call for the immediate arrest and prosecution of these correctional officers is because her office is representing 3 out of the 13 correctional officers in civil cases that inmates and families have filed for abuse at the hands of these correctional officers. Obviously, you don't have to be a brain scientist to figure out there's a clear pattern of abuse at New York State Correctional Facilities.
Since then, my desire to substantiate those statements have grown. Unfortunately, the deeper we get, we witness high levels of corruption and evil. This goes without saying, but I will say it anyway. This in no way is an attack on New York State corrections officers as a whole. In any industry, the potential for corruption is present and occurs. For every act of unwarranted brutality an inmate faces, there are countless acts of duty from corrections officers who operate with integrity and a moral compass. Edmund Burke once said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." I found the following article I wanted to share with you. I read this article from Yahoo News, Utica Observer-Dispatch. The title, "Inmates Testified in Lawsuit They Were Assaulted and Battered at Mid-State Correctional." The author is Casey Pritchard. Following the death of an inmate at Marcy Correctional Facility, a lawsuit's ruling of treatment of inmates at Mid-State Correctional Facility that flew under the radar is now in the public eye. According to the court documents in the case, 32 inmates were assaulted and battered with the excessive force involving inappropriate contact with their genital or rectal anatomy, and subsequently denied medical treatment for any injuries. Of the 32 inmates, 28 testified their experiences to the court. The lawsuit was decided on December 2nd of this year by State Court of Claims Judge Anthony Brindisi, who ruled that the corrections officers and supervisors were to be held accountable for the assaults. Officer injured, inmates blamed. Court documents state on July 3rd, 2016, a correctional officer was found unconscious with a head injury in the 4H dorm at Mid-State where he was assigned. The officer was discovered by incarcerated individuals residing in 4H, who then pulled the officer's pin to summon help, and staff promptly arrived, the documents read. A now retired deputy chief investigator for the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision's Office of Special Investigation testified that a false narrative spread among the staff at Mid-State Correctional Facility that the injured officer had been assaulted by inmates in 4H. In actuality, an OSI investigation had revealed the injured officer had not been assaulted, but had fallen. This would all lead up to the July 6 raid. The court's findings determined that the July 6 raid was authorized by Mid-State supervisor staff, including the facility superintendent, and had a dual purpose. The first was to locate a weapon that was believed to be used in the alleged assault on the injured officer. However, the second purpose of the raid was to send a message to those in the housing unit that assaults on officers would not be tolerated. The testimony made clear that the raid was condoned and overseen by supervisory staff at Mid-State, including those holding ranks of sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and superintendent, Brindisi wrote in his decision. During the raid, officers used excessive force against incarcerated individuals in the unit. Marcy inmate testifies he was used as a trampoline by an officer. One of the claimants, who was only identified as JD, gave his testimony to what happened during the raid and what happened to him, and it painted a disturbing picture. On the morning of the raid, JD said he was heading back to his room when the door swung open and the officers came pouring in. As the officers came in, JD said they were smashing and breaking everything in their paths and heard screams and thuds from lockers falling. He noted that none of the officers had their name tags on. JD said the assault on him began when he was dragged out by his hair from underneath the bed he was hiding under. He said he was kicked, punched, stomped on, and had officers step on his arms and back while they dumped his food on him, and was used as a trampoline by an officer who jumped on his back. JD went on to say that one of the officers punched him repeatedly, threatened to kill him, and touched his genitals while the claimant was trying to urinate. According to testimony, JD was struck 45 times on his legs, back, ribs, and head. And when evaluated by medical staff, he said he was in extreme pain that made it difficult to breathe. JD testified that when he was brought to medical staff, they were told that he slipped on cornflakes and landed on a pair of boots. In his inmate injury report on July 6, 2016, he stated that he slipped and fell in the commotion. JD later drafted a memorandum to his injury report saying his initial report was written under duress. Another 28 Marcy inmates give similar testimonies. Similar testimonies can be found among all 28 inmates who testified. In one inmate's case, one RB, who has since died, testified that while being surrounded by several officers, supervisor personnel, a captain, the deputy of security, and the superintendent, was kicked, had a locker dropped on him, and a medical object inserted into his rectum. His testimony was corroborated by another who said he recognized RB's voice as he screamed and asked officers why they were sticking something in his anus. Mid-State Correctional Facility in Marcy will be held liable for the assaults of the claimant, and damages will be scheduled by court. Any motions previously decided are denied. To read more about the court's findings and all 28 testimonies by inmates, visit, and here's the site where you can take a look at the testimonies, which are pretty damning. So, out of curiosity, I went ahead and clicked on this page, and here we see the documentation from the Court of Claims that was decided on December 2nd, 2024. And take a look at what we have here. Here we have the defendant's attorney, the Honorable, which I don't believe she is, Letitia James, Attorney General of the state of New York. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a resident of New York State, this is your New York State Attorney General, Letitia James. I am a former New York State resident many, many years ago, ended up relocating to Jersey, and now I'm in the free state of Florida. I would be absolutely disgusted with this Attorney General. Disgusted. This video that I'm about to play, some of it is from the initial message that she did on December 27th, in which she released the body cam footage and spoke about how she would do a quote unquote, diligent investigation. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
On December 16th, my office announced that it had opened an investigation into Mr. Brooks's death. As in every case, the attorneys and investigators in my office are conducting an exhaustive review of the facts and the evidence. As Attorney General, you have my word that we will use every possible tool available to us to investigate this death thoroughly and swiftly.
So what we do know is that when she made these statements, it was absolute BS. And I'm going to refrain from using any profanity. It's really not something I want to do, but we know that this is absolute BS because a few days later, I believe it was January 1st or January 2nd, she recused herself from handling this investigation. And she admitted that her office were representing 4 of the correctional officers that were involved in the Robert Brooks case in previous civil litigation. Since 2016, actually, I believe the civil suit came about in 2018, but during that time, since 2018, the New York State Attorney General's office have been representing these corrections officers. Her and her office have known about the abuses. For years, they've known about these abuses. They've known about the inmate attacks, the inmate sodomy occurring by the hands of these correctional officers, and they have done nothing about it. They have condoned it. I'm really shocked that there's not enough outrage about this, why the media hasn't covered this extensively since 2018 or back in 2016. It really boggles the mind. I don't understand it. I'm pissed off about it. It does not make any sense. I'm going to end the video here. It's been long enough, but I wanted to share with everyone my minuscule amount of research that I've done and what I've been able to find about the history of abuses at the hands of correctional officers at New York State Department of Correctional Services. Again, the Office of Attorney General has known about this for many years. They've known about these abuses. They have represented these corrections officers, and they have done nothing systematically to improve these conditions, to prosecute anyone, or to arrest anyone. Hopefully, we can see justice occur soon, because enough is enough.